I received a message from an old friend the other day that opened with this sentence. As we, the Jews, approach our new year, Rosh Hashanah, an unusual question arises. What are we going to wish to each other? The usual Shana Tova, a good year, sounds a bit naff this year. It says naff is a British slang meaning worthless, tacky, unfashionable. Many people are suggesting instead, because of the awful memories of this past year for us, that we should be wishing each other besorot tovot. May there only be good news instead. This phrase in Hebrew has become a standard go-to for many in Israel over the course of the last year, mostly referring to the potential news of rescued hostages. People greet each other and say goodbye by wishing for some good news soon. So the question of what we say to each other in this Rosh Hashanah is not a trivial one, of course. As we approach the first anniversary of October 7th, and as we contemplate the state of the world, the words Shana Tova, a happy new year, sound almost jarring. Rosh Hashanah, the beginning of High Holy Days, is supposed to be imbued with utmost joy of celebration as we usher the new year with the sweetness of honey. How do we enter the season of joy when the Jewish world is on fire? What do we say to each other this holy day season? A few weeks ago, I had a beautiful opportunity to experience immense joy. A former bat mitzvah girl, a daughter of family friends, was getting married and has asked me to officiate halfway across the globe. Weddings are always full of joy, but having such a close family connection was extra special indeed. As final preparations were being made, horrendous news arrived on my phone screen. 6 hostages who were about to be rescued by IDF were executed by their Hamas captors, point blank, after 11 months in captivity. There were hundreds of people that have traveled to this wedding from far and wide, and the joy of bride and groom takes precedence. It is, in fact, a mitzvah, a religious obligation to rejoice with the bride and the groom, to rejoice the bride and the groom, to make them happy on the day of their wedding. But how could we proceed with joy in the face of such sorrow? How do we bring joy into the time of the tragedy? Now, sadly, this is not the first time I had to face such a difficult question, and this is not the first time our people had to face this challenge. In fact, every Jewish wedding ceremony stops just before the end for the moment of breaking the glass under the chuppah, to mourn the destruction of the temple and to recognize that the world is not complete, that there is pain and suffering all around us. Even in our utmost joy, we pause to make space to acknowledge our mourning. One of the benefits of a tradition that goes back thousands of years is to accept, in the words of Ecclesiastes, that ein chadash tachat hashemesh, there's nothing new under the sun. Our long and illustrious history offers us the wisdom of previous generations of Jews who had to face the unimaginable sorrow and find a way to build a future filled with hope. So as we grasp for the right language at this time, let us turn to the words of our tradition for help. This text appears in the Babylonian Talmud, Bava Batra 60b, if you want to go back and have a look at it. Our sages taught, when the temple was destroyed for the second time, large numbers in Israel became ascetics, who decided neither to eat meat nor to drink wine. Rabbi Joshua got into conversation with them and said to them, "My sons, why do you not eat meat or drink wine?" And they said to him, "Shall we eat meat which used to be brought as an offering on the altar, which is now abolished? Shall we drink wine which used to be poured as a libation on the altar, which is now abolished?" He said to them, "If so, we should not eat bread, because the meal offerings have ceased." They said, "We can manage with fruit." He said, "Well, we should not eat fruit, because there is no longer an offering of first fruits. that was done in the temple. They said, we can manage with other fruits. And Rabbi Joshua said, we should not drink water because there is no longer any ceremony of the pouring of water. And they were silent. He said to them, my sons, come and I will tell you. Not to mourn at all is impossible because the decree has been decreed. To mourn too much is also impossible because we do not impose a decree on the community which the majority cannot endure. Rather, thus said the sages, a man may stucco his house, but he should leave a little bare. A man can prepare the needs of a banquet, but he should leave out an item or two. A woman can prepare all her ornaments, but leave out a small item. Forgive the gendered nature of the text. It is almost 2,000 years old. As it is said, if I forget you, O Jerusalem, let my right hand wither. Let my tongue stick to my palate if I cease to think of you, if I do not keep Jerusalem in memory, even at my happiest hour. So the Talmud and the subsequent Jewish law is quite clear. We have to find a way to experience joy even in the face of the utmost destruction. But we must not ignore the pain of that reality. Kohelet, Ecclesiastes, suggests in a well-known phrase that there is time for everything under heavens, a time to mourn and a time to rejoice, drawing an invisible line between all of these experiences, separating them into fine, neat categories. Here is mourning, here is joy. A famous Israeli poet, Yehuda Amichai, challenges that notion. A man doesn't have time in his life to have time for everything. He doesn't have seasons enough to have a season for every purpose. Ecclesiastes was wrong about that. A man needs to love and to hate at the same moment, to love and cry with the same eyes, with the same hands, to throw stones and to gather them, to make love in war and war in love, and to hate and forgive and remember and forget, to arrange and confuse, to eat and to digest what history takes years and years to do. A man doesn't have time. So I stood under the chuppah with this gorgeous bride and the handsome groom, surrounded by their loving family and friends. And we acknowledged the pain and the loss and listened to the Chazan chant the words of Psalm 137, if I forget you, O Jerusalem. And the groom broke the glass, and we shouted Mazel Tov as loud as we could, and we danced and rejoiced with the couple, even as our hearts continued to break for our people, and the families of hostages, and the world suffering in pain. This is our recipe for resilience. We break the glass under the chuppah. We add a little salt to the sweetness of challah every Friday night. We leave a corner of the most beautiful house unfinished. On Rosh Hashanah, we allow ourselves to replace salt with honey, for even symbolic pain has to give way to symbolic sweetness and joy. This is how we survive and stay strong. So what do we say to each other tonight as we welcome the hope of the new year amidst such pain? My friend ends his message with these words: I'm wishing all of us a year which is good for each and every one of us on a personal level. A year in which the 101 hostages being held in Gaza return home to us in Israel. A year in which the cannons no longer roar. A year without casualties of war. A year in which we begin to rebuild that which others tried to destroy. A year in which we're able to heal the deep wounds of division in our societies. A year in which different worldviews will flourish, but not to be used to hurt those with whom we disagree. I think that sounds like a good way to bring in the new year 5785. Shana Tova.